This is everything you need to know about the new Deep of Night game mode coming to Nightreign on September 11th. We are getting brand new, never before seen relics with more relic slots, a new weapon rarity and passives, harder enemies, map changing events, new skyboxes, and even skill based matchmaking. Timestamps for each will be in the description. Let's begin by discussing what Deep of Night is. It's a ranked hard mode that is designed for veteran players of the game. Difficulty increases with greater depth levels, with a total of 5 depth ranks, depth 5 being the hardest, and depth is increased by accumulating more rank rating. This is the rank rating needed for each rank. As well, once you reach depth 2, you cannot be demoted back to depth 1, but you can be demoted from higher depths. Furthermore, when launching an expedition for this mode, you can't choose a target boss or conjure a specific shifting earth, meaning it is a completely random seed. But it's important to know that no new seeds are being added to the current pool, and you can only get a seed from the 320 currently in the game. Also, when you queue for Deep of Night, there's a skill-based matchmaking system being put in place to match you with players of the same rank. However, if your queue takes too long, you may get someone of higher or lower rank than you on your team. Now, you may be wondering, what if someone leaves the match? Well, if you try to leave, you get a pop-up saying, returning to the title screen during session will affect depth rating depending on progress. Proceed. And for the players still in the game, they will get a pop-up or banner stating that the rating penalty will be waived due to the premature exit of another player. People leaving runs is probably the biggest complaint about Nightreign right now, so this is definitely good news. Now let's take a look at how Deep of Night will be made harder and its new mutated enemies. First and foremost, it's important to know that the scaling of each depth for each enemy type is linear, meaning depth 3 is the average of depth 1 and 5. However, when facing a red mutated enemy, the depth adjustments stack multiplicatively with mutation adjustments. You may have already heard about or maybe even seen these red mutated enemies in the Deep of Night. But now let's take a closer look as to how they are scaled to be made more challenging to face. Beginning with trash mobs, so this may include really anything that isn't some sort of boss or part of the central castle. If these are mutated, then they will get 2 times their current HP and damage. Now, on top of this increase, depending on the depth you are on, this value is increased even more. Let's say we are on depth 1. HP and damage of trash mobs, this includes ones that aren't mutated, is increased by 1.35 times. Then, when facing the same enemy mutated, you multiply the mutation adjustment with the depth adjustment to get a value of 2.7. This is how much stronger a mutated trash mob will be in depth 1 when compared to the normal expeditions. And in depth 5, this value goes up to 3.6 times more HP and 4.2 times more damage. Hopefully that explanation made sense, so we can now fly through the rest. Minor POI bosses, this include great churches, forts, camps, ruins, and everjails that don't include the oldest everjail. Get 2.6 times HP if mutated at depth 1 and 1.9 times damage increase. This value scales up to 3.6 times HP at depth 5 and 4.4 times damage. If the enemy is any of these, or these enemies at everjails, then this value applies to them. But for everything else mutated at these POIs that isn't one of the enemies listed before, they get a 2.28 times damage increase at depth 1, scaling to 5.2 times damage increase at depth 5 instead. Moving to the castle elite mobs, including Crucible Knights, Trolls, and the Lion, they get 2.6 times HP increase and 1.95 times damage increase at depth 1. Banished Knights, on the other hand, get the same HP increase at depth 1, but get 2.3 times damage increase at depth 1 instead of 1.95. And at depth 5, they all get 3.6 times HP and 5.2 times damage increase. Next we have the regular field bosses, which also includes all basement bosses except for Bellbearing Hunter. They have an HP increase of 2.6 times and damage increase of 1.95 times at depth 1. Scaling to 3.6 times HP and 4.4 times damage at depth 5. Formidable bosses, including the Bellbearing Hunter in Castle Basement, Shifting Nurse, and the oldest everjail, referring to spawns of the Ancient Dragon, Godskin Duo, and Deathrite Bird, all get 1.38 times increase to HP and damage if mutated at depth 1. This value scales up to 1.84 times HP and 2.53 times damage at depth 5. Now, moving on to the Night bosses and the Night Lord itself, these can't be mutated, meaning they all get a linear depth scaling applied to them. For Night 1 boss at depth 1, we get an increase of plus 35% to its HP and damage, with HP scaling to plus 130% and damage scaling to plus 270% at depth 5. The Night 2 boss at depth 1, we get an increase of plus 30% to its HP and damage, with HP scaling to 120 and damage scaling to 260% at depth 5. And finally, the Night Lord. At depth 1, we get an increase of plus 25% to its HP and damage, with HP scaling to 115% and damage scaling to plus 230% at depth 5. However, HP and damage isn't the only thing being scaled up in the Deep of Night. Every single enemy, all the way from Trash Mob up to the Night Lord itself, doesn't matter if they are mutated or not, gets a chance in stamina damage versus shields increase of 15% at depth 1, scaling to 50% at depth 5. Stamina damage versus shields refers to how much stamina will be consumed to block a hit, also indicating that staggering these bosses will not be easy. Now, all of those numbers may make Deep of Night Expedition seem almost impossible to beat, which, to be fair, it probably is. However, there is still hope, as we are getting new relics called Deep Relics, which can only be slotted in the 3 new relic slots coming to the game. Before we look at the new effects coming to the Deep Relics, it's important to know that the majority of the current relic effects aren't in the pool of new Deep Relics that can be rolled. We will categorize the new relic effects into 7 categories, beginning with stats. Note that the relic effects on the left always come with curses, whereas those on the right can never come with curses. Next, offense relic effects. Also note that relic effects of the same text color cannot appear together on the same relic. Defense relic effects, regen relic effects, support relic effects, loot and exploration effects. We will cover Dormant Power effect specifically in a moment, and character effects, which I will also be covering in depth later in this video. Lastly, we have the curses that may come with the relic effects that were shown on the left. Next, let's take a look at the specific new relic slots and character ability relics coming to the game. Let's first take a look at Wilder, who will serve as an example for the rest. These are all his current relic slots, and if you didn't already know, the new relic slots will be added on top of the current ones, but can only hold deep relics. This gives us 6 slots in total to work with. These slots are mostly all the same color layouts as the current ones, except for chalices, which have the last 2 slots changed, and sealed urn, which is completely different colors for each Nightfare. As well, Wilder's new relic inflicts blood loss to enemies with his grapple. Moving on to Guardian. These are his current relic slots, and these are the new ones. His new character relic now boosts damage negation of nearby allies when using his Whirlwind ability. Next, we have Iron Eye. These are his current relics, and these are his new ones. His character skill now inflicts heavy poison damage on poisoned enemies with this new relic. Moving on to Duchess. These are her current relics, and these are the new ones. Using her character skill, Restage, now provides brief invulnerability with this new relic. Now let's take a look at Raider. These are his current relic slots, and these are the new ones. With this new relic, enemies hit with his character skill will now have reduced attack power. Next, we have Revenant. These are her current relics, and these are the new ones. Her new relic allows her to increase maximum FP upon ability activation. Moving on to Recluse. These are her current relics, and these are the new ones. Her new relic allows her to negate affinity by collecting affinity residues. Finally, Executor. These are his current relics, and these are the new ones. Using his new relic allows him to slowly restore HP upon ability activation. These next relic effects can definitely shake up the meta with the new stat modifying and dormant power relics. First, looking at stat modifying relics, each Nightfare has been given 2 relics. One is usually better than the other. Wilder's first relic gives him plus 8 mind for 7 vigor, and the second gives him plus 15 intelligence and faith in exchange for 10 strength and 8 dexterity. This is what he will gain and lose for each at level 15. Guardian's first relic gives him plus 7 strength and plus 17 dexterity in exchange for negative 10 vigor, and the second gives him 22 mind and 38 faith in exchange for 6 vigor. This relic gives him better face stat than base Recluse and Revenant. This is what he will gain and lose for each at level 15. Iron Eye's first relic gives him 17 arcane in exchange for 8 dexterity, and the second gives him 4 vigor and 16 strength for negative 15 dexterity. This is what he will gain and lose for each at level 15. Duchess's first relic gives her plus 3 vigor, plus 24 strength in exchange for negative 15 dexterity, and the second gives her plus 3 mind and 16 faith in exchange for negative 12 intelligence. This is what she will gain and lose for each at level 15. Raider's first relic gives him plus 9 mind and plus 35 intelligence in exchange for 12 vigor and 5 endurance. And the second gives him plus 17 arcane in exchange for negative 4 vigor. This is what he will gain and lose for each at level 15. Revenant's first relic gives her plus 5 vigor and 4 strength in exchange for negative 12 mind, and the second gives her plus 31 strength in exchange for negative 26 faith. This is what she will gain and lose for each at level 15. Recluse's first relic gives her plus 3 vigor, plus 5 endurance, and plus 16 dexterity in exchange for negative 8 intelligence and faith. And the second relic gives her plus 11 intelligence and faith in exchange for negative 12 mind. This is what she will gain and lose for each at level 15. Executor's first relic gives him plus 4 vigor and endurance in exchange for negative 12 dex, and the second gives him plus 8 dex and plus 14 arcane for negative 3 vigor. This is what he will gain and lose for each at level 15. I personally think this is the best relic out of the 16, as he gains 71 dexterity and 42 arcane, giving him even higher arcane while already having the highest arcane in the game for only 60 health. What is Dormant Power? It's a new relic effect coming to the deep relic pool, allowing you to change the preferred weapon type for a character for the purposes of boss loot, overriding the default preferred weapon type. Before I explain more about the passive, here are all the preferred weapon types for each Nightfarer, which is important to know when using this relic. For most bosses that drop dormant powers, in other words, loot drops, one of the weapons offered has a chance of typically 35% to be from the character's preferred weapon type. This means each character is overall more likely to find the preferred weapon type from boss drops than other characters. For example, if Wilder equips the Dormant Power, helps discover Colossal Swords, he will now have a 35% chance to find Colossal Swords from Dormant Powers. However, his likelihood of finding Great Swords will now be the same as any other Nightfarer. It is also important to note that this doesn't affect the unique movesets Nightfarers get with their preferred weapon type. Furthermore, Dormant Powers don't stack, so only the first effect in your loadout will be active if you equip multiple. Adding on to this, the drop rate from a character's preferred weapon type by boss type is as follows. Forts and Great Church bosses have a 65% chance and they're always uncommon. Ruins and main encampment bosses have a 35% chance and are always uncommon. Castle elite enemies have a 25% chance and they're always uncommon. Regular field bosses, 30% chance, always uncommon. Formidable field bosses, including castle rooftop and basement bosses, have 35% chance and they're always rare. Noclateo Estelle and Mountaintop Ice Dragon have 15% chance and are always legendary. So when you equip Dormant Power, this is the chance you have of getting that weapon type from bosses found at these locations. There could be some very good combinations between these two relics that create entirely new metas. Staying on the topic of buffs to our characters, we have some new weapon passives coming in Deep of Night. Beginning with melee weapons, the passive Ice Storm upon charge attacks causes Frostwind attack after charging your weapon and buffs it with 20 frost buildup for 20 seconds. Next, Black Flame upon charge attacks creates a black flame on the ground after charging your weapon and buffs it with Black Flame effect with 12 fire damage for 7 seconds. The passive Phantom attack upon charge attacks triggers a Phantom Slash Ash of War after a charge heavy attack. The Holy Shockwave upon charge attacks triggers a wave of Golden Ash of War after charging attacks, also buffing the weapon with 12 holy damage for 12 seconds. Luring enemies upon charge attacks creates gravity that pulls in enemies after charge heavy attack. Magma upon charge attacks creates magma on the ground after a charge attack and buffs the weapon with 12 fire damage for 20 seconds. Lightning upon charge attack creates a lightning blast after charge attack and buffs the weapon with 12 lightning damage for 20 seconds. Charge attacks invoke Sleep Mist, creates a sleep mist after a charge attack and buffs the weapon with 20 sleep buildup for 20 seconds. Moving on to ranged weapons such as bows and crossbows, we have projectiles launched upon charge attacks, which fires 3 magic projectiles at an enemy after a charged shot. The next 5 create a specific effect when and where a manually aimed shot lands. First, we have Lightning upon precision aiming, Poison Mist upon precision aiming, Rot Mist upon precision aiming, and finally, Blood Flies upon precision aiming. Next, we will look at shields. Shielding creates Holy Ground. This creates Holy Ground after blocking with the shield for 3 seconds. Broken Stance activates Endure. Gain the effect of Endure Ash of War if guard is broken while blocking. Lastly, we have the new passive effects for Catalyst, beginning with Guarding Up's Sorcery and Incantations. This gives you a buff after blocking with a staff or a seal for 2 seconds. This buff can stack with itself onto 3 times. Each stack lasts roughly 25 seconds, and each stack grants 10% increased spell damage and increased cast speed equivalent to 30 virtual dex. Finally, failing to cast spell restores FP. Restore 13% max FP when attempting to cast a spell with insufficient FP. Let's take a look at some minor map changes coming to the mode. Beginning with Cataclysms, which, if you aren't aware of what those are, they are the tornadoes above POIs that strengthen enemies and spawn Night Invaders, and look like a dark green bubble on POIs on the map. In Deep of Night, one Cataclysm is guaranteed, and as your depth increases, the chance of a second Cataclysm spawning increases as well. For depth 1 and 2, the chance for a second Cataclysm is 50%, going up to 95% chance at depth 5. With 2 Cataclysms, you can get some great value out of the defeating Night Invaders improves attack power relic, with it having multiplicative damage increase up to 31% if you defeat all 4 Night Invaders, with 7% damage increase for each. Furthermore, Night Invaders including Libra summons are scaled up in Deep of Night as well. They can't be red mutated, so their stats are scaled linearly, meaning depth 3 is the average of depth 1 and 5. HP and damage is 30% more on depth 1, up to 80% HP and 195% damage at depth 5. Next, stance and stamina damage is plus 15% at depth 1, scaling to plus 50% at depth 5. Stamina damage versus shields refers to how much stamina will be consumed to block a hit. In addition to this, we have new events affecting the map as well. First, we have Missing Map, which hides all POIs except for the Central Castle and the Shifting Earth. The second event is Hidden Night Lord Icon, which doesn't allow you to see the boss you are fighting at the end of the expedition on the map. Both of these events can occur on depth 3, 4, and 5, with a probability of 1 out of 6 for each, and they can never occur at the same time. Finally, the Deep of Night Relic rewards. This may change as relic drops have been bugged in mods recently. A depth 1 victory grants you 2 regular grand, 1 deep polished, and 1 deep grand relic. Depth 2 victory grants 2 regular grand, 1 deep polished, and 3 deep grand relics. A depth 3 victory grants you a 3 regular grand and 6 deep grand relics. A depth 4 victory grants you 3 regular grand and 7 deep grand relics. And finally, depth 5 grants you 4 regular grand and 8 deep grand relics. A depth 5 loss at night 1 grants you a 3 regular grand and 3 deep grand relics. Some final bit of information is that red rarity weapons are a slightly better version than epic and come with 2 positive passives and 1 curse, and also require level 7 to use. Blue and purple weapons can also be cursed, only difference is they have more passives. That is all for the overview of everything new in Deep of Night pre-release. Of course, when the mode releases, we may get a few more things added, which I'll be sure to cover. And as always, like and subscribe for more Nightreign content news.